And welcome to another episode of the Atheist Experience, one of the last few of the year. I'm your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today is my amazing wife, Linnea Glasser.
Hello, glad to be here.
Yeah, welcome. And today is Sunday, December 16th, 2012. We are a live call-in public access atheist television show based in Austin, Texas, and dedicated to promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We are also available through live streaming video at ustream.tv. The official Atheist Experience website is www.atheist-experience.com. You can provide feedback through the official show blog at freethoughtblogs.com/AXP. And you can email us at tv@atheist-community.org. If you enjoy this show, then you should also check out our sister podcast, Godless Bitches. You can find the link at the Atheist Experience website. And finally, as always, the cast and crew of the Atheist Experience will be going to dinner after the show around 6 p.m. at Threadgill's at 301 West Riverside Drive in Austin. And anyone who is local and can make it is welcome. So, first time on this show. I know you've been on the Godless Bitches several times before.
It's exciting. God saw fit to smite Jeff D with some flu, so I'm here as a replacement, and I know we all hope he gets better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so today I thought I would take the time to talk about souls really quickly before we get full into calls. So I'm going to do a little bit of some armchair philosophy today, and normally that's kind of a bad idea, but it's backed up by actual science, which makes it okay.
And what are your qualifications for this actual science?
So I have a BS in biopsychology, which is, I explain as like having a BA in neurobiology. So it's kind of a softer view. Yeah, so I can't quite do brain surgery, but that's all right. I'm here instead. So souls are kind of interesting things, and they're more interesting to me than the God question, because souls you could actually study. Souls definitely interact with the real world, because you've got these physical bodies, and your soul has to somehow change that body to make it do what it wants. You can't.
Of course, you're saying souls as they would be described.
If you're assuming that a soul is
right.
a real thing, as they would be described by Christianity, that sort of thing. And a lot of people say that they believe in Christianity because they want souls to be correct. They want to live after death, that sort of thing. So they kind of believe because it's lumped in with all of that. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So, but let's talk about what the soul, how it would work with your body, and kind of examine that. You can't have like the puppet move without the strings. So what we want to do is find where are those strings. That's what we're doing. So let's say if I move my hand, how does the hand move? How would you imagine a soul would move a hand? Well, if you were to design a soul, I would just make the soul move the hand. So let's look at the hand.
Directly.
What what moves the hand? Does it just move out of nowhere? And that would be a kind of soul thing? And the answer is no. You have muscles. The muscles move the hand. So, well, maybe the soul interacts with the muscles and sends the signal to the muscles. And so you look at the muscles and you say, well, what makes the muscle move? And it turns out it's nerves.
Right.
So you say, okay.
As if you believe scientists.
Yeah,
I mean.
and so that's kind of the work that scientists have done in the past. So we've started with this armchair stuff. Oh, well, I think the hand would just move. And then you look at the hand, and the science has found out, no, it's muscles, then it's nerves. And then where do the nerves go? To the spinal cord and up to the brain. So a lot of theists and soul believers who maybe don't believe in a God but still believe in souls, or hope for a soul, they'll say, well, maybe the soul interacts in a special way with the neurons in your brain.
So that's basically dualism, right? You've got the brain stuff that makes the nerve move, but then you've got the magic cloudy stuff that is kind of telling the brain what to do, right?
Yeah, and it's coming in from this other dimension or something, and it's magic. So you look and say, well, okay, even if it's magic, even if it's kind of this weird thing that's going on, you still got to see that point where it makes a change that you wouldn't expect, based on the laws of physics, based on how proteins interact, that sort of stuff. And this is assuming that the soul is entirely so crippled that it can't move the tissue in your hand, it can't move the tissue in your muscles, can't move the tissue in your nerves. It has to do it in this special place in the brain. And that could be the case. You got stuff like ears. Ears.
The computer gets all the internet from one little spot right there, where it plugs in.
From your port. You can only hear through your ears, you can't hear through your hand.
Right.
So maybe there's some kind of sensory organ that senses the soul and that sends information back and forth. So if you look at the brain nerves and say, well, let's try and find something like that, you kind of do find that nerves have this system for receiving and sending information, but it's from other nerves, from other brain cells. So there you go. The soul, there's no other kind of sensory soul organ. It's just this self-contained system, and there's no input that comes from somewhere else. There's no output that goes to other places. There aren't these special proteins that change in weird and unexpected ways.
Well, playing devil's advocate, if that thing is in another dimension, then how can we know that there's not some kind of receptor that's just receiving something that's invisible to us? I mean, I guess a theist would say, if you looked at a radio, and you didn't know how to look for radio waves.
Well, you can still build a radio that will pick up those kind of waves, and you can still see how it interacts. And I mean,
that's interesting. You could maybe make a machine that would hijack the magic soul stuff, communicating with the brain, and make it communicate with a robot instead.
And then it would be perpetual energy. So
that would
that.
That would be kind of cool.
You could ensoul a robot that way if that was how it worked.
Okay, why can't we?
Well, maybe they do have souls, and we just don't know. They're just very content, and they don't interact with us. But so the system is, every time when you would expect, oh, this is what the soul does, or this is how the soul would work, it just works. A part of your body is doing that, and especially when it comes back to the brain. So your brain is your soul. Your brain is you, and there's a reason that people really like to avoid getting brain damage, because that destroys part of you. And there's a reason that amnesia people, they don't remember because of that brain damage. It's not that their soul just forgot to interact with that part. It's not that when you take drugs, it goes back into the soul land, and that affects your mental capacity. It's all in your brain.
So do you think that people who believe in souls would think that, if you're getting drunk, your soul is just kind of hovering around there, perfectly lucid, and going, I can't control this thing right now. What's wrong with it?
I mean, yeah, that would have to be kind of the explanation. But there's no system for that. I mean, if there was some kind of receptor organ or some kind of device, we would see it. There's no ear inside the soul. There's no nose. There are chemical receptors in brain cells, and those chemical receptors are designed to receive signals from other brain cells.
Watch that word, designed.
We're assuming,
Yeah.
we're even assuming that there's a designer.
Okay.
They've been designed by evolution. I'll give it that. So souls, kind of saying we don't know about souls, we don't know about the afterlife. I feel like we have a pretty good idea of what that entails. And it's a sad thing, but it's a pretty good probability that it's not the case. And that's what I wanted to come out and say.
So you're going to have to disillusion people and tell them, yes, it's all physical and chemical processes as far as we've been able to discover.
As far as we've been able to discover. Maybe there's some kind of tiny protein and the soul is so lame that that's the only thing that it can actually work on. Very incredibly limited magical powers. And I mean, that's the other thing. If you had a soul that was interacting with the body through this kind of magic, what keeps it inside your body? Why can't you do the levitation? Why do you need eyes to see?
Why can't you ensoul a robot?
Why can't you ensoul a robot? You know, all these things. Why can't you smush multiple people's souls into one body? You know? Be it like that one movie, Being John Malkovich. It's just a weird movie.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
kind of cool.
It raised some interesting things. But, so that's it. Souls, probably not real.
Okay. Thank you.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Also, bah humbug.
Yes, bah humbug to all of you. We've already had Matt and Beth hype up Christmas, saying some atheists like Christmas, some don't. All right.
And whatever you like or don't like is fine.
That's right.
You don't have to feel pressured to like Christmas, to dislike Christmas.
Feel free to exchange presents, go to parties, get drunk.
Do however you feel like celebrating the day.
Right. It also happens to be, I have to remind everyone each year, Newton's birthday, Sir Isaac Newton. So that is a perfectly good thing to celebrate if you have to celebrate something. And then, of course, you know, there's the Seinfeld holiday, Festivus. Lots of other, a lot of people still have solstice parties to avoid the religious connotations.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, on to calls, and we're going to start with Tony in Pennsylvania.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Mr. and Mrs. Glasser.
Hello.
Okay, here's the
How are
deal.
you?
I have several questions I'm hoping to get answered by you two rational free thinkers. Oh, by the way, bah hypocrisy, which is what humbug means. Bah humbug.
Okay.
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 The first one, you're willing to sacrifice, are you willing to sacrifice your happiness for the truth?
Am I willing to
That's
sacrifice
a very, very general question.
my happiness
Okay.
for the truth?
Okay.
I mean, I try
mean-
and find happiness in the truth, or I try and make the truth into something that's happier.
Right. It depends. I guess it depends partly on how much happiness and how obviously true. I mean, I guess one way to put this question is you're Cypher in the Matrix, and he just wants to go and eat steak and drink wine and not know that the real world is a crappy spaceship. So he tries to get re-injected into the Matrix. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
No, basically,
Okay.
what I'm concerned about is the people who lose their faith, and they lose their faith, and then by discovering the unfortunate truth, they realize that, okay, it's most likely that there isn't a God.
Why
and
unfortunate?
because it's more, it would be a better possible world if there was all-powerful and all-loving Lord. let's say,
Not
Well,
necessarily.
let's put it this way. So
if he's all loving, let's just say.
he's certainly not. I mean,
Well,
that's
Well,
sacrificing
I don't
the
believe in
truth.
any deity.
Right. Well, this world certainly does not have an all-loving God. You can just look to Africa
I
and
agree.
starving children for that. So that
I agree.
So I feel like the Christians are the ones sacrificing happiness. But anyway, when I was younger, my parents told me Santa Claus was real. And I thought that's where I got my presents. And then I figured out Santa Claus was not real, and I pretended to still believe because I thought I would get more presents that way.
But when you found out Santa Claus wasn't real, didn't some of the magic of Christmas just disappear when you found out that Santa did not exist?
No, I didn't.
I'm done.
And then I realized later that I was pretending to still believe in Santa for nothing because my parents were still going to be the ones getting me that presents. And I had kind of attached the Santa and the presents together, but really it was the parents. It was this real thing that was giving me that benefit. And so I didn't sacrifice my happiness for the truth because I still got the presents and the gifts, but from my parents and from the real place. And not from the fantasy place.
Well, religion is the only comfort many people have in their lives. And the more your show grows, the more people see it. They realize that you're right. You're right. They adhere to this rationality, free thinking, and they lose their religion, they lose their faith, okay, which could be a positive thing. Okay, and both of you probably agree.
Can I just stop you for a minute and check where you're coming from? Have you recently lost your faith? Or
Yes, I have.
And
Yes, I have. You are speaking to an atheist, yes.
Okay, are you feeling unhappy because of it?
Well, of course, sir.
Of course.
Of course.
Well, I mean, I've never been religious, and I've never been unhappy about that.
That's probably why. But
Okay.
if you could understand somebody who was born into a religious family and indoctrinated into these things since birth, as many people are, and then they become an atheist, it's much more difficult to cope with than someone who did not grow up in a theist family or a theistic. So my question to you is, what coping methods would you recommend to somebody who lost their faith by discovering the truth or whatnot?
Well, how did your deconversion go, Linnea?
My deconversion was very slow and painless, and I just gave stuff up very slowly. So I don't feel like it's very relevant to this call. I mean, I can have a little more insight maybe, but I would like to go back to something you said earlier where you said that many people, the only positive thing that they have in their lives is this religion. And I feel like that's part of the problem is if people end up in these situations where it's just terrible and the religion is kind of the only thing that's keeping them content with these bad situations,
Right.
that there needs to be a lot of work from the community to improve people's situations so that we don't end up in this place where you feel like the only good thing you have going for you is religion. And I feel like there are many ways that you can either improve your life to give it more meaning if you feel like you're not doing enough, or if there's something that's going on that's kind of more out of your control, that's putting you in a bad situation. There are social groups and social people you can talk to professionally who can help put that kind of perspective of this is all the good things that you are doing and this is all the good things in your life, or you can work towards improving that.
That may be fine and just in everyday life, but what happens when tragedy strikes? I mean, as a recently atheist, I haven't been struck with tragedy, but I fear that when I do, what is the method that would help me then? I can get through everyday life. When a tragedy strikes, what do I do?
Well, it depends on the tragedy.
Let's say dealing with not so much a death, but a disaster. Let's say a house fire, for example.
A house fire.
Because I could tell you, I mean, Russell asked me how I lost my faith. I could easily answer that.
I mean,
Right.
the thing about a house fire is
Hold on a
that
minute.
it emotionally sucks, and it destroys a lot of property. And when you have that kind of fire, you should be able to rely on people and community around you and friends and family who can say, man, that's a really sucky situation. Do you need help? Do you need a place to stay?
Yeah,
Do
but
you
then
need
they throw
help?
religion into it. They'll throw religion into it all of a sudden.
Well, then you need a better class of friends.
No.
Or you can say, you know, I really appreciate, I know that means something to you, and I really appreciate that sentiment, because what they're giving
it's
you.
kind of it's kind of hard to disentangle these two things because you know, it's not just the thing that religion provides only good things and happiness to your life. You know, religion causes those strings to be attached. Like when people say, "Well, I'll help you, but first you have to accept Jesus." That's kind of, you know, that's kind
That's
of a rotten-
balderdash.
What?
That's balderdash. I don't buy any of that. No, not anymore. Poppycock. I don't believe in that. It's wacky.
You don't believe?
I don't believe. No, I don't believe in that that theological superstitious nonsense. It's
Right.
wacky.
Right, but
Wacky.
other people believe in it.
Oh well.
Yeah,
I did most of my life, sir. Yes.
Right.
There was just a school shooting, and someone
Oh yes,
was
in
famous.
Connecticut. Oh, terrible.
Yeah.
Someone famously just said,
Mike
you know,
Huckabee?
I didn't catch who it was, but he said, you know, the reason that this happened is because they took God out of schools, referring to, you know, removing school prayer. So they're saying that, oh, this is tragedy. Yeah. So
Yeah, of course it is.
so when you
it
become
is
an atheist,
former-
you don't have that kind of stuff where you're like, well, something bad happened to you, but you must have deserved it, right? So you can look at it and say, yeah, crappy stuff happens to good people, and that sucks.
And they themselves commit logical fallacies other than theological ones, such as an argument from arrogance.
Yeah,
Sure.
all the time. The thing is, I mean, atheism doesn't provide specific mechanisms to cope with the world other than what you get from looking at the world realistically. But that doesn't prevent you from going with all the, from looking into all the other ways to cope with terrible things in your life, which are things like getting counseling, finding comfort in your friends and your loved ones.
Doing something you like, I don't know, taking a bath.
Yeah, taking a hike, going into nature if that's your thing. You know, reading philosophical books. There are a lot of great books of philosophy by atheists, such as Bertrand Russell, or I think one that I read by Robert Nozick called The Examined Life was pretty good.
I heard The Demon Haunted World by Carl Sagan is renowned in the atheistic community.
Oh, I love The Demon Haunted World, but I wouldn't say it's so much about, you know, philosophically how do you deal with difficult emotional times as it is what's an overall perspective that you can use to sort of understand the world and reality through science. So, I mean, different topics.
Sure.
Okay.
But Bertrand Russell, The Conquest of Happiness is a good one.
The Conquest of Happiness, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would like to thank both of you for helping me out very much, and I wish Jeff the Gamer D a speedy recovery.
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, we have Dimitri in Maryland.
Hello?
Dimitri, you're on. You got 3 seconds to say something.
Matthew.
I was kind of worried about that,
Yeah, I
actually.
didn't think that was real. Sydney in Seattle, Washington.
Hey, what's up, Blazers?
Hey,
How you
that's
doing,
a good way
Sydney?
to refer to it.
Just hanging out. First time caller, but a huge fan of the show.
Okay.
You guys are really instrumental in my deconversion, and
Thank you.
yeah, you guys are pretty good. You guys are pretty good. I was calling because I wanted to get your opinion on a particular stance that I have right now. I was a Christian for about 20 years of my life. indoctrinated, born and raised, whatever. And something like really terrible happened to me when I was 20, and that started leading to my deconversion, and then I started looking at YouTube channels like Thunderfoot, and I ran into you guys, and all that. I was a huge atheist for about 5 years after that, and I hit rock bottom. I became addicted to some stuff, and I just lost all control of myself, and I recently started praying again, and I'm not saying that I'm praying to God or I'm buying into the whole Christian faith or anything like that. I'm kind of like implying a power of positive thinking kind of perspective. You get what I'm saying, kind of, or not?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
So,
I was just... Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So one of my favorite things that I studied in when getting my degree was placebos, and kind of I was really interested in it because I was thinking, how can you harness this real phenomena that's happening and make it also apply to real medicines?
Placebos being if you take some fake medicine and you think it's real, then you're more likely to get better.
But there's a whole bunch of tricks and stuff that improves how well the placebo works. If you make up some kind of explanation for how it works in your body, then you'll do better than if you just took the placebo that some doctor gave you. The more you work at it, like a placebo surgery is more effective than a placebo pill. I would not recommend taking a placebo surgery. But when you go through that motion, there's a reason that prayer became popular. If it didn't work somehow, then it doesn't work through magic. It has to work somehow, and you can take that and make it work.
Partly it works just by confirmation bias. I mean, people think that some of their prayers have been answered, and they don't think so much about the ones that aren't answered, and so they feel like, and so they can develop that sort of mental superstition around it, right?
I don't think he's like asking for wish granting. I think he's just like.
Well, no, I'm certainly not implying that by praying that you influence the natural world or anything like that. I'm not implying that. But I'm kind of going with what your wife... I'm sorry, what's your first name?
Linnea?
Linnea. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Basically with what she was saying about how there might be like not necessarily a placebo effect, but more of like a physiological, maybe neurological, like you're just in a positive mood, right? And like when you're in a positive mood, stuff just like seems easier, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and so I think that's a great thing to do. Trigger that however you feel like, and as long as you can say, I know where this is coming from, it's coming from inside me, then that's great, and you should definitely take advantage of that. I know Dan Barker likes to speak in tongues, and he doesn't believe in that stuff anymore, but he just finds it enjoyable.
Well, okay. Well, I'm kind of like at the point to where, like I'm with atheism. Like I completely understand where y'all are coming from, and in fact I agree. Like but I'm kind of at the point to where I'm saying, I'm just going to choose to believe. Like it's ridiculous. I know that it's ridiculous.
Believe what?
Just that there might be a higher power, and that if I consistently go through reaffirmations or, state reaffirmations and ask for things and truly believe that, not necessarily that all of those things are going to be granted to me, but more that I'll be okay, like I'll be fine.
Well, there's two senses in which you could believe that. I mean, you're saying that you choose to believe it, which is weird to me because, I mean, do you think there's a reason to believe credibly that the God exists, or are you just believing it because it makes you feel good to believe it, and you straight up say that?
I would say to empower the positive perspective that I'm coming from, I'm just going to choose to believe, like, because that's what faith is, right?
So you're going to say that you believe, but at the same time, on some level, it's actually not true.
Well, can anyone say it's true? I would say more. I'd say I know it's illogical, but I'm going to choose. Like, I mean, we can't say that anything's true or not.
Well,
right?
then in that case, do you really believe it, or are you just telling yourself you believe it?
Maybe I'm telling myself that I believe it. I'm not. Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm not going to lie to myself or to y'all. It's ridiculous to believe it, but I have been applying it, and whether it be coincidence or the power of the human brain, because we don't know the capabilities of that either. But whether it be one of those things have just been going a lot better for me, And dude, look, I'm not trying to preach to you, and I'm not trying to convert you or anything. Like, I'm with you guys, I am. But I'm just, offering this perspective and just trying to get your opinion on it.
I feel like that takes you to a potentially dangerous and kind of selfish place. And let me explain why. So, I mean, Mormon underwear protects you from fire.
Okay.
Would you choose to believe that?
Well, I mean...
If you were in a fire and there was some Mormon underwear, would you say, well, I should put this on so that I'll be protected?
Right. Well, again, I was when I talked about prayer, I wasn't suggesting that it would influence anything in the natural world. Right. I was suggesting that it would influence something physiologically or neurologically.
Well, could you choose to believe it, and then maybe it could influence your skin to protect you against the rising heat? I mean, it gets to this weird place where you're making, where do you draw the line? And then you also get to a place where there are all these people who are really suffering, starving to death, have malaria, and what is their excuse for not praying hard enough?
Right. No, I agree with you. Again, like, I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say that you could bend reality with it. Obviously the limits would be, the limits of the natural world.
So, I mean, what I'm thinking is, if all you're choosing to believe is believe the fact that positive thinking will influence you psychologically, you don't have to believe anything irrational. You're right.
Yes.
I mean, that is actually true. That's, like she said, the placebo effect is a real observed phenomenon. But the real question is, do you believe anything supernatural along with that because it's convenient?
I don't, because it's illogical.
Okay.
Then you're right.
I believe if there was
That's
a God
then
and
we
he
agree.
gave me a logical brain, it would be ridiculous to be illogical with it. So yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
All right. Then we agree.
All right. I think we're going to move on to another caller, though.
Sure. Hey, good talking to you guys, all right?
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks.
Take it easy.
Bye. Corey in Alabama.
Hey,
Hi.
how are you guys doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
I'm doing well. I'm a theist here in Alabama, and
Okay.
I would like to first off thank you guys for this whole show. I know you don't get a lot of thanks from a lot of people, or a lot of theists at least. But I would like to thank you guys to push people to more and be more logical
Well,
thinking.
thank you, Corey. I'm glad you appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. I would like to discuss, I know you've heard this 100 times before, I'm sure, but the quantum cosmological argument,
Okay.
Okay.
being obviously premise one, whatever begins to exist has a cause. Premise two, the universe began to exist, and then the conclusion logically follows, therefore the universe has a cause.
Okay.
Okay.
What specifically do you mean by universe?
The universe, like all matter, space, and time.
Okay. All matter, space, and time. So not just the physical universe that we know began to exist with the Big Bang, but like any potential metaverses or anything else that might exist as
Your soul stuff as well.
Right. How do you
Yeah.
know that began to exist?
Because with the reality of time, there can't be an actual infinite that can actually exist.
Why not?
Being that time is a series of events, one after the other, you would never be able to get to now. If there was an infinite past, you would have to transgress
That's
an infinite
kind of
amount
a
of time to get
weird
now.
misconception about how math works that a lot of people make. But
I don't know.
Anyway.
I feel like I'm convinced now that Shiva exists. This is the
That
best.
what?
Shiva exists?
Shiva?
I feel like, yeah.
Yeah,
This
the
is
Hindu
a-
god, is that the one with the arms or the
Yeah.
one with the elephant head?
Yeah, I mean, that's who created the universe, right?
I'm not sure. Not with that one, at least. But that would prove that, well, actually, that would prove anything. Shiva wouldn't be able to exist. You know, she's a physical, sort of physical god, and having physical attributes means that you're
All right,
bound
so
to
let's say that we go with this argument and ultimately we decide that what it proves is that there was something that didn't begin to exist, right?
Okay.
I mean, that's what you're getting at, right?
Somewhat. It would have to be a transcendent being.
No, wait. Who said being?
Oh, well, inanimate objects can't create something
Why not?
because they have no will to do so.
You don't need
My
will.
toaster makes toast.
Are you saying your sister's inanimate?
My-
Like an abstract object?
yeah, the toaster
Ethan?
makes toast.
A toaster?
Out of
Yeah,
bread.
I mean, when you
We
say
have to
inanimate
have the
objects,
will of us.
when you say inanimate
Make it.
objects can't make things, you're kind of begging the question because you're assuming that there are no natural processes by which things come into existence without a God, when what you're trying to do is prove God. So, I mean,
But things can come into existence through natural processes that were set into motion via
Be a
what
Shiva.
I would say is God.
or via a toaster, a cosmic toaster.
Yeah, toaster.
A cosmic toaster.
How do you
Well,
know?
toaster-
How do you
A
know it
toaster
wasn't?
would also have to be physical, being that it's a toaster. Therefore, it would have to be under the
No,
constraints
it's a
of matter and time,
transcendent
which would-
toaster.
What?
It's a transcendent toaster.
Transcendent
Transcends
toaster.
time and space.
Right, doesn't have a personality, but it's a toaster hovering in nowhere in no time, and through it all things come to exist with no intent.
With no intent. How could it have no intent yet come to exist or bring into
How
existence?
could
Same way a
with-
regular toaster has no intent.
How
The
could
toaster
something
was
with
made, though,
intent
by
have...
something that has an intent to do something.
How
Like it was
could
made by
your
a
guy...
person
Okay,
to make
so...
toast.
So your idea is that it's just like the toaster, except that it has this will somehow.
It's like the brave little toaster.
Right.
Yeah, close to it. I would say that it can't be really defined as a toaster, being that toaster as we know it has physical properties. So, I mean, if you want to use toaster
Not
instead
this
of the word
toaster.
God,
I mean,
This toaster has no physical properties.
well, then it wouldn't be a toaster, would it? We define toaster as something that has physical properties.
all right, but it wouldn't necessarily
not
be a
this
god
one.
either.
Not this one.
Why not?
Because that's... How else could the universe have been created? If
Except by the
except by
transcendent
this thing.
toaster with no physical properties.
that transcends time and space.
Well, that's not me. That's what I think, that the transcendent being is the thing that did create the universe.
Okay, I know you think that, but you have to actually demonstrate it in order to convince other people. And the Kalam cosmological argument doesn't really do it. I mean, at best, the Kalam cosmological argument attempts to convince people that there must be a thing without a God, and then you jump to this assumption about it being a being, which there's not really any support for that.
Well, the only
Even
two
assuming we
possibilities
grant that
for it to
premise.
do that, the only two possibilities that could have created it, the uncaused first cause or whatever you would want to call it,
Transcendent
would
toaster.
be an unembodied mind or an abstract object.
If I had a soul that could travel back in time, could I be the one that created the universe?
No, because you'd have to
Why not?
come out of time to create the universe, because the universe is
Well,
dependent
if I had a soul that could transcend time, then could I be the creator of the universe
Retroactively? you could-
retroactively?
retroactively. You'd have to have immense power. You'd have to
My soul has
have
that.
the will to create the universe.
Okay, yeah, it would have that.
And let's see, what else would you have to have? You have to be non-physical, as in...
My soul is not physical, so that's cool.
Okay. Soul is not physical. Like, that would seem to be describing what the cosmological argument has to prove.
this guy just proved that I'm the creator of the universe. This is the best
well,
presentation of the cosmological argument I
I
have
don't
ever
see how
seen.
that proves that you're the creator of the universe.
Well,
Or
I mean,
physical.
I mean, that's the problem here. I mean, really what the Kalam cosmological argument defines is a vague set of properties without actually identifying anything. Any leap to, well, it's got a personality or it's a thing that we could call a god is just conjecture, even if the other things about the Kalam cosmological argument work.
Yeah. It's just as likely that I did it as some other thing, any other thing you could name.
Do you have the immense amount of power that would create the universe?
My soul does. My physical body doesn't, but that's because it's a physical body, but my soul does. So,
I'm not sure that all is.
well, I believe I know how much power my soul has.
Interesting. Well, I'm not sure that this is going to further.
Well,
Well, that's
why
kind of
don't
what
you
we say, that we're not
call
sure
again?
about,
Yeah,
about
I mean,
that
we don't
kind of stuff.
we don't say absolutely that we know how the universe got started. We
Uh-huh.
just don't find
That
a god
terribly
a particularly convincing possibility.
What would you find as a particularly convincing possibility?
If I knew that, I'd have a Nobel Prize.
So it seems that there's faith on both sides of this argument.
No, because faith involves feeling certainty about something that you have no reason to know about. And I just said, we don't know.
I mean, I don't think so. You seem to know that there isn't something, and there's the faith in that
Well,
you don't.
we don't. It's just that the issue is about burden of proof. I mean, if you tell me that you know that the Loch Ness Monster is real, then the onus would be on you to provide the right evidence that the Loch Ness Monster is real.
I mean, why did you hesitate to believe that I'm the one who created the universe?
Because you are not all powerful.
How
But
do
I
you
just
know?
told you I was. My soul is. I mean, I feel like what you're in your mind, you're saying to yourself, that is ridiculous and silly, and I don't have a good reason to say why that's ridiculous and silly, but it's just kind of common sense, and I don't really know where to go with that ridiculous thing that you're saying. And that's kind of how we view the God thing.
Right. I mean,
You
not
think
with,
of God as just the soul?
no, we think of God as just something you make up to answer something that you don't know the real answer to. Doesn't mean it couldn't be true. It just means something you make up isn't that convincing a possibility.
And
It would
canon-wise,
seem
I
that
think God's the ultimate soul.
by saying that it's something that we make up, that you're trying to put it as something that can't be true.
Well, do you have direct evidence of this God?
Do you need direct evidence to believe stuff?
Generally, yeah. I mean, if you did tell me this Loch Ness Monster thing, my default position would be not to believe you.
And you could make up something that's true. Like, I can make up that there is a guy downtown right now wearing a red shirt. And, I don't know, that could be true. But,
Probably is true.
but I'm not going to believe it until we get the evidence.
And what kind of evidence would suffice?
What kind of evidence? I'm sure that an all-powerful creature would know exactly what kind of evidence.
I mean, in the case of the guy with the red shirt, it's
Yeah.
pretty, weak
Oh, yeah, that would
claim.
be-
So,
go
I mean,
down to
just
the
a
street
picture
and
of
take a
him on
picture.
Facebook with the tag would actually be good enough for me at that point. But
Yeah.
for something that says there exists a being outside of time who is all-powerful and can do any kind of magic trick and creates universes and doesn't like gay marriage, that
I would
that
require,
would require a
a
pretty high
very
bar.
big magic trick.
Right.
It doesn't seem like it's that big of a jump or a leap.
Well-
I think that something, if there was something like God, that would be transcendent, all-powerful, all-knowing, and stuff like that.
Well, you just said
Where
if
you
there
would
was
be
something
able
like
to do
God,
this.
then it would be like God, which is
And yet it's too much of a leap for you to believe that I have a soul that's that powerful. I feel insulted.
There. I can't hold her back.
I wouldn't want to insult you.
She's really angry now. You're welcome to call in another week. I think we've got 15 minutes left, and we're going to move on to another caller. But thanks for the discussion, Corey.
Thank you.
All right, bye. David in North Carolina.
Hey, hi, Russell, and thanks for taking me. I called in initially, but I lost a signal. The internet is my virtual lifeline to the world, and it failed on me. But I'm glad I had an opportunity to get back on.
All right.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Like many people, I am active on social media, and like many people who are active on social media, my friends, the people who are out there that I associate with, represent a broad spectrum of interests and beliefs and worldviews and so forth. In the wake of the recent tragedy in Connecticut, the elementary school shooting where so many people lost their lives, a lot of my more faith-oriented friends have now gotten in the mindset. Well, they're reposting things which say in so many. It's a dialogue with God in which people are asking God, why did you permit this to happen? And God is answering them, sorry, I'm not allowed into schools anymore. And this just drives me crazy. I am an atheist, as it happens, and what I want to be able to do is provide some sort of a cogent response that isn't, it's not egregious, it's not mean-spirited, but at least encourages them to think about why they think this, and maybe they should think a different way.
So apparently these people, along with former governor and presidential candidate, I'm going to put you on hold for a second.
Yeah.
Sorry, you got some kind of weird background noise.
Yeah.
I'll tell you when I let you back on, though. Apparently, along with Mike Huckabee, these people believe that there's a God who's going, hey, I have the power to save, 27 lives right now, but, not enough people are praising my name in the school every day, so screw them.
Yeah.
What a dick.
What a dick move, yeah.
Asinine.
What? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there's just multiple levels to which that's ridiculous. One of them is that there's no evidence that God ever saves anybody from a shooting. That's wishful thinking. And the other is the absolutely horrifically scummy and callous belief that the all-powerful God is not rescuing the lives of 6-year-olds, was it? Or
I think so. I didn't get the details, but there were a lot of elementary school children.
Because he's throwing a temper tantrum over some legislation about teachers not being allowed to promote religion in school, and he's taking it out on little kids.
Right.
Screw that God.
Well, he's asking, how do I deal with the people who believe that this is a real thing? This sounds like a Facebook problem, am I right?
Well, yes, it is. It is something that is being passed around on Facebook, and I see it so many times. And I don't want to defriend people over what are essentially differences in our beliefs.
Oh, it gets easier after the first time.
But again, as I said, I want to be able to provide a response that's meaningful and cogent and encourages them to think without seeming like I'm an asshole.
Well, two things. First of all, you don't have to defriend. There is an option to unsubscribe.
Right, I am familiar with that, but
so that
certainly is a choice.
It's a good way to ensure some peace of mind. You can always temporarily do it if you like. But what I would recommend is they're being an asshole. They're being incredibly rude. You have the right to be rude back. And you don't have to expect it to go anywhere. And I wouldn't get embroiled in a flame war that goes for multiple posts with it going back and forth. This says this said that. I would respond with something that's kind of short and simple and just says, look, I feel like this is really insensitive to people who are suffering and who actually who got hurt by this, who got killed by this, And I feel really badly about this. And you don't even have to touch, the God stuff, the religious stuff. Just say, I feel like this is not an appropriate sentiment to be expressing. And that's kind of a good thing to do, because that's not you can't really flame back to that. You can't be like, well, it's completely appropriate, you're dumb.
I unfortunately, over the course of trying to express my views and do exactly what you describe, I've found myself embroiled in those flame wars, to use your expression, and they're unproductive. And at the end of it, neither party, neither side in the argument ends up changing their mind anyway. So it's
David, I'm going to do you a huge favor right now. I absolve you of responsibility to fix your friend's stupidity. It's not your job.
It's fair to reply once, so that other people, if they read that post, they can see, oh, it's not just this one person that thinks this way. But if they reply back, I wouldn't even bother with it if they want to keep going about it, because no one else is going to see. And Russell has this policy where he doesn't reply to people unless it's public or he enjoys it. I think. And so once it gets to the point where no one else is seeing it and you're just fighting a big wall, don't fight the brick wall.
You're right. That makes sense. And I really have, as time has gone on, I've kind of evolved into a point where I will make one response, and then after that, it's fine. You have your position, I have mine. We're not going to see it the same way. That's the end of it. Let's move on.
Right. Although when she says, if I enjoy it, it's fair to have an argument if you need the practice. If it's the first time you're hearing something, feel free to bang your head against that wall, because in the future, if that topic comes up again, you might have a better idea of how to respond next time.
Sure, it's kind of analogous. I've been going back through, I'd stopped following recent shows for a while, and I've been going back through and listening, and on one of the recent shows you folks talked about reading, or one of the hosts talked about making it a point daily to read or research something that they didn't disagree with the net effect that it would help you to kind of gel your argument against that and understand it better and so on.
I think that was Tracy.
Yeah, listen, I'll let you go. I know you probably want to get to other calls, but I think the work you guys are doing is very important, and I'm a big fan of the show, and thanks very much for taking my call.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Good luck.
Plus, if you argue with them again, or enough, then they could be the one that defriends you.
There you go.
And then the problem solves itself.
Matthew in Hawaii.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, hi there. Big fan of the show.
Okay.
Thanks.
I wanted to ask you guys a question about kind of coming out of the closet as an atheist. I am someone who's been kind of born and raised Christian my whole life, and I've kind of just battled with that the last few years when I've kind of discovered evidence that kind of disproves a lot of what the Bible says. But I never really had a problem pretending that I still had faith up until recently, especially with the shootings, kind of got me riled up. So I was wondering, like, how important you guys think it is to be open with your atheism and to let, like, say, family members know.
How old are you, and are you living by yourself or with family members?
I'm 24 years old, and I'm currently living with some family in Hawaii.
You're currently living with family. I mean, getting atheist visibility out there is important, but it's not more important than your personal safety and well-being. So that's a judgment call that only you can really make. If you feel like they would maybe kick you out or retaliate or manipulate you in some way with regards to your current living situation, then I would say there's no sin when it comes to lying. That's okay, and I had to go through that for a while, and it was hard. It was kind of heartbreaking, because you want to do the right thing. You want to present yourself and be accepted as who you are. And that is a good feeling when you have the luxury of doing so. And so, yeah.
Sorry, just to add on to that, it's like I have confronted certain family members about at least, not necessarily being an atheist, but even early on when I just had questions. And it seemed like just asking questions kind of like riled them up. And so, I mean, that kind of made me reluctant a little bit to be more open with it, because I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm outright atheist.
Sure.
But, you know, it's like, it seems like even questioning the Bible can upset fellow Christians. And so it's like, I'm not really sure how to go about that, or if I should at all. I guess, like you were alluding to earlier, kind of wait for the right timing. I mean, maybe my situation isn't the best right now to do so.
Well, Russell absolved that last guy, so I absolve you. It is okay to lie to your family about this issue as long as you think that they are not going to respond in kind, with being respectful.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I don't. It's weird. I don't feel necessarily like they have to know, which is why I still don't really. It's just that, like, for instance, to kind of go back to some of the shootings, and I've seen people like upload those pictures on Facebook that say, "Oh, these shootings kind of happened because we took God out of schools," and I've seen certain people that say, "Oh, these kids are in heaven now, even though we have no idea whether they're Jewish or atheist or even Muslim." And it's kind of like what little faith I have in that religion is kind of squashed right now because it makes me so ashamed to hear fellow Christians say that.
Right. Well,
Sure.
yeah, I mean, it's going to be a long process of not only coming to grips with your own atheism, but also figuring out how to gracefully deal with the people that you interact with. You know, it's entirely possible that sooner or later your parents will find out, but there's nothing wrong with making it later rather than sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good advice. Well, thank you for answering my question. I think I'll let you guys go. Maybe you guys can squeeze another caller in real quick.
Good luck to you.
All right, thanks a lot, man.
Yeah.
Bye. Oh,
I would like to throw back to that previous, to the first caller, I think,
Okay.
who was
Are we-
asking about the happiness versus, are we running out of time? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, but we'll just, Nils, hang on, and we'll take you after in the post-show, and you go ahead and wrap us up.
So yeah, so the happiness versus the reality. I don't really feel like it's a great thing to get happiness out of a school shooting. So that is what atheism offers. Thanks to the
Right.
casting crew.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you at Threadgills on Riverside. It's been a great week, and I'll see you next year. So bye. Thanks, Linnea.
Thank you.